Megan, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. I'm through my.
Thank you. All right, it's 6:31. Let's get this meeting started, please. Give me the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wanted to disclose that we have a recording device here for the purpose of taking meeting minutes. And I believe the meeting is also being streamed. Was it on YouTube as well?
Yes.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. Prior to this meeting, we had an executive session where we discussed real estate, legal, and personnel matters. And let's start with the approval of minutes.
Just before we do, we're live streaming. Are we able to have the capability of closed captioning this?
Yes, you should be able to turn it on YouTube.
The viewer.
Yeah, the
Once
viewer
it-
at home can
Okay.
close caption. Sure.
And we were sure of compliance with all ADA requirements under the new federal regulations.
We can confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something we should have confirmed before live streaming, but okay.
Does anybody need to do anything?
No, you're good. though.
No, I think we're.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on January 14th, 2025.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Derhinessian and seconded by Supervisor Iacono. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I abstain.
One abstention.
Then I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting on January 28th, 2025.
I'll second.
Motion made by Supervisor Derhinessian, seconded by Supervisor Iacono. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries. Peter, you ready to go for the treasurer's report?
I am.
Thank you.
Can you make sure that button is pushed on that? Red light is on.
It's on. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hope you've had an opportunity to take a look at my report. I'll be very brief. We're starting off January, $470,356.91 township wide, higher in cash, total cash than where we were 1 year ago. So we're going into this year in a strong cash position. There are some variances in some of the income accounts. The one I'm going to look into a little bit is the transfer tax. It's very possible that county didn't remit any of that to us, or there were no sales in December. So that's just a bit of an anomaly that I will take a look at and see what's going on. If we didn't get that, I did talk to Ed Plash about it, and he's not sure of the reason either. So that's something I'm going to take a look at. Under the expenditures, the negative variances, the computer and technology, we bought a server. The police department, they bought a Tahoe. What we need to do in our expense analysis is we budgeted for it. We just need to move the budget from out of the year-to-date column into the current column. So this variance is not as significant actually as it reflects. So we have to make an adjustment in our budgeted number. The code inspector, that variance is because we got two months. We got December and January got into the 1 month of January, and the EMS. We paid for November, December. There were 8 shifts in November. Shift was $685, and there were 58 shifts in December that we paid for, which is reflected in that EMS expense. I'm assuming, and we'll have to talk more about this, that that's eventually going to get paid out of the EMS fund, right?
Right.
So that's very possible. We're going to get removed when we reimburse that amount. The trash fund, we're reflecting a $15,000 loss. We thought we'd have a much more significant loss. We thought we'd probably be close to $90,000 loss just because we haven't collected any revenue yet. We haven't, as the bills go out, we'll be collecting that revenue. So we're actually in a positive variance on that as well. So really, that's it. Not a lot to report in the first month of operations, other than we're in good cash position. So with that, I'll be finished.
Thank you, Peter. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report, pay all bills, and release relevant escrows. But I'd like to have that contingent on the hiring of the new staff accountant and upon treasurer review. We have if our new business motion passes, we'll have a new staff accountant on Thursday when they have the opportunity to evaluate that first.
I'll second that motion.
So there's a motion made by myself and seconded by Supervisor Iacono. Any
But,
questions?
Yeah, I mean, accepting the treasurer report and paying all the bills that have already been incurred doesn't have anything to do with hiring a staff accountant, does it? He just read the report.
He just read the report. And
What's that have to do with?
I think before all the checks are released, we just want to give the staff accountant the opportunity to take a look through everything and make sure, just because we've been in a little bit of a transition period.
Why are we gonna hold checks up? I mean, don't they have to get out?
We need to just confirm that everything's coming out of the right accounts.
Well, didn't our treasurer already do that? Somebody wrote the checks,
Yeah, we have an interim staff accountant.
right? So why do we need to hold the checks anymore? There's 10 months left in the year.
There's some things, I had some questions on some of the bills. And I'm not 100% certain that they all came out of the right accounts.
But we're gonna approve,
It was like three bills, and Bill is pretty certain that they were cut correctly, but I think just
Why just
Before
hold us
they-
3 bills?
before
Yeah.
they,
so why are we approving the bills then?
cause we're just gonna approve it and have that new accountant take a look at it and everything gets released.
But are
at
we gonna
once.
sign checks time?
Yes.
yeah,
What 3 specific ones are we talking about? I don't know why we're being trying to push on this. What 3 issues are we having?
There was one of Madron's invoices. Matt had some bills that should be coming out of a reimbursable escrow account that I do not believe came out of a reimbursable escrow account. So I think there was maybe 2.
and Madron, I know it was discussion on the best path forward. Just to make sure that everything's coming out of the right account. I think, did you have a recommendation for us to move forward with this?
I mean, to me, getting these approved, because you gotta pay your bills every month, is important. And if there's a concern, approving them on contingent upon a review to make sure that everything's accurate makes some sense to me.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Into the reports. So the first item we have is under finance. And we had the auditors, I think the independent auditors met at a Board of Auditors meeting on January 7th, Steve Mancini, Debbie Miles, and Derek Lloyd, to evaluate our finances, and there were recommendations by their board. And one of the recommendations was to increase the treasury bond limit. So in accordance with their recommendations, I'd like to make a motion to increase the treasurer's bond for Bethel Township from $3,404,000 to $6.1 million.
Second.
Motion made by myself and seconded by Supervisor Dara Hannessian. Is there any comment?
Yeah, I guess it's education for the public. Why is it being doubled? Did they give any more context to it, or?
Yeah, so,
Peter?
by all means.
You're gonna have to come up to the mic, Peter, they can't hear you.
Normally bonds are based upon the highest amount of cash that the township has at any one point. during the year, which is in effect the highest exposure that the township has. So we compiled an analysis that indicated the highest per amount at the end of each month. And we gave it to the auditors and that's what they came up with. So at one point, we had last year 6.1 million.
Okay. When was the last time it was raised? No, or?
We raised it last year.
Yeah, I think we do this exercise every year. It might have,
But we never doubled. We never doubled.
I don't remember if we did it last year. I think,
Pretty sure we did a little.
yeah, I do know, there's been, this is his practice. I don't remember if he did it last year because it has jumped significantly, but, I think we might have missed either 1 or 2 years.
I mean, do we have $6.1 million of available cash and all across all the accounts?
At some point when all the real estate taxes are in, yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Have it for a very short period.
Correct.
You know, it's not like we're sitting
Right.
on it for all period.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to taxes. During the month of January, there were 12 invoices collected for 2024 taxes. Total tax collected for January was $7,793.48, which was remitted to the township in one installment. The breakdown was as follows: $4,277.26 for township tax, $318.78 for fire tax, $128.44 for library tax, $3,069 for trash fees. As of January 31st, 2025, 3,523 tax bills were collected out of 3,568. Mr. Plash, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, the bills went out last Monday and we got our first payment within 48 hours. So
Fantastic.
we get about 45, 50 payments every day.
Great.
Very sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Plash. That concludes the tax statement. On to public safety.
Chief McCarthy, good evening.
For January of 2025, we had 806 calls for service and they were broken down into 71 medical emergencies, 1 DUI arrest, 19 alarms, 56 traffic stops resulting in 42 citations. There were 9 domestic disturbances, 9 crashes, 3 thefts, 2 fraud investigations, 11 other criminal investigations. Building checks and building checks and development checks were 339. There were 6 vacation home checks, 16 suspicious vehicles. There were 2 death investigations, one of which was a fatal motor vehicle accident. And there were 226 miscellaneous calls. There has been a recent uptick in residential burglaries in some of our surrounding communities, including some in Delaware and also in the Commonwealth. When you are leaving your house, obviously we suggest you lock all your doors, lock all your windows. And even when you are home, if you have a home alarm system, you should turn it on. Some of these burglaries that are occurring are actually daytime burglaries. And on several of them, there have been people in the residence when they break in the doors and the windows and they're actually, the residents are inside the house. So, please exercise caution. Obviously, especially tonight, when there's inclement weather, please give yourself some extra stopping distance, slow your roll down a little bit, and just make sure that you drive carefully so that you don't end up one of our statistics here next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor D'Agostino?
Lance, you're gonna report tonight?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's supposed to be on the way.
Oh, no problem. I'll take care of it. Bethel Township Post Company number 1, month of January, 49 calls of service, 12 in Bethel Township, 1 fire alarm, 3 EMS assist, 4 motor vehicle, 1 assist PD, carbon monoxide, gas leak, fuel spill, that's about 3. And then 45 mutual aid and 2 drills. I believe that's about it. Sound right? Okay, that's all we have.
Thank you. Supervisor Iacono, Emergency Management.
There's no reports of major injury or property damage. This one from our emergency management coordinator.
Thank you. Could you move into Highway?
Sure. Highway report for January, crew cleaned and checked chipper and returned it after the rental. They removed the box from truck 7, cleaned and painted and put in storage. They've been consistently installing plows and spreaders and making adjustments for the plows and everything. And as we've been posting on social media, try to keep the streets clear when snow events are happening so that they can safely plow. They had 2 snow and ice events. Crews were out approximately 85 hours plowing and salting. Several spots were iced over and had to be treated several times because of the freezing temperatures. They've spent several days cleaning and neutralizing the equipment after the storm events. They've used approximately 150 tons of salt and have restocked the salt supply and restacked it. They made repairs to equipment that was damaged during the snow events, serviced 2 police cars, and repaired a tire on police car number 5. And that's the highway report. With that, we had budgeted for another full-time highway department employee. Brett, myself, and Dr. Addison interviewed several candidates. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Robert Ortman to the highway department at a rate of $23 per hour for 36 hours per week, subject to a 1-year probationary period.
I second that. So motion made by Supervisor Iacono and seconded by Supervisor Denny. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And then the buildings and grounds report, crews cleaned and serviced the overhead doors in the garage, cleaned and repaired lights in the Myers building, adjusted the heat ducts in administration offices, installed paddle fans in the highway garage to circulate the heat, repaired lights at the sewer authority office, and then cleaned and reorganized the storage room in the administration office and relocated files and cabinets. And that concludes the buildings and grounds report.
Thank you. On to the board reports for Parks and Recreation. They had met on January 15th of this year, and they were preparing for the April 5th Easter egg hunt. And there's some new business later discussing that. Similarly, there was an evaluation of the replacement of the walking paths on Jack King Park. So that was discussed and voted on in their meeting. And then I guess probably the biggest item that came out of their meeting that's somewhat unresolved is they held their reorganization in January, and they were not able to identify a chair. So there was a voting Ray Stiles back in as vice chair and Fallon McMain back in for secretary, but there's an opening right now. And just putting that in front of this board, if they're not able to decide on someone to chair that organization, wanted to get some feedback from this group on best path forward. Normally, I think once the township administration staff is stabilized, there's some ability for them to help out, but that team obviously has got their hands full with everything else going on. The biggest issue, of course, is making sure that all the events that they run are compliant with the insurance requirements. So I don't know if this board had any thoughts or discussion on that while we actively look for someone to step up and take that role. Okay,
So is the voting a tie or nobody has put themselves forward and what's it doing?
correct. No one has, yeah, I mean, I think,
It's a time commitment.
yeah, and I think those folks that were serving when Scott was chair, they recognize that time commitment. I think there's just a concern that they wouldn't be able to do the role justice. So in the interim, Ray is stepping in as acting chair, and Felly and myself are trying to help push things along as much as possible. And early on, it's not as bad as preparing for that form boil. So,
Gotcha.
And I think Ray's concerned too about his schedule, and that's why he hasn't stepped up to take that role.
well, I just want to make you all aware, if there's some other thoughts.
Is there going to be another vote this week at their next meeting? And
It's an agenda item. I don't know if someone decides to step in. I have had some individual conversations with some of the members. Some of the challenges, the fact that about 5 of those members just became members in 2024. So I think there's some anxiety about stepping into something that they hadn't, really got their feet wet into yet. So I guess from where I sit, I'm kind of hoping this board's amenable to allowing it to be status quo for the next month or two while the township administration team kind of stabilizes. there might be an ability for there to be some shared resources while somebody gets their footing and maybe steps up to be in the chair. But just want to let you all know about it as soon as possible. Well, that concludes the Parks and Recreation Board minutes.
So I will do the zoning hearing board report. The board had 2 items on the agenda in January. The first item, 2024-13, was a use variance request for an office and indoor storage of tools and equipment. The property is zoned R1 and all testimony was heard and a decision will be made at February's meeting. The second item, 2024-15, was a request for a temporary variance or special exception to allow an accounting office to continue to operate at 1577 Spring Meadow Lane. The similar situation, all testimony was heard and a decision will be made in February. So on the docket for the first one of 2025-01, there's an application where the applicant is seeking relief from Bethel Township Zoning Ordinance 182 and is requesting to erect a detached garage with the height of 17.8 feet in lieu of the permitted maximum height of 16 feet. And that was respectfully submitted by Gary Lanahan, who is unable to attend tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning Commission report. So the Planning Commission had the 1420 Conchester Daycare on the agenda. They approved the preliminary plan contingent upon the applicant resolving all outstanding item in the township engineer's letter and all open issues regarding the dumpster to the satisfaction of the township engineer, chairman, and all the fire marshal requirements, and the sidewalk fee for installation pending the outcome of their discussions with PennDOT. The chairman encouraged the applicant to resolve all pending issues prior to submitting final plans, and that's from Lou, who's also not able to make it tonight. That concludes the Planning Commission report.
Thank you. Supervisor D'Agostino?
Yeah, so the Bethel Township Sewer Authority met on February 6th. Some of the highlights were the Powell Road pump station upgrade. They're working on the final design sometime in 2025. They're gonna do it in 2 phases, spring 2025 for bid for the equipment and then summer installation of the equipment. The smoke testing that they did last year went very well. They're about 80% through the repairs. That should really help out with any leakage. And then they were able to get a grant to replace or install generators at some of their pump stations. So a lot of good stuff going on there. And that's about it.
Thank you. On to education, Supervisor Davey.
Thank you. Michael Saladino, the Director of College Counseling for the Garden Valley School District, sent us a letter dated January 27th, letting us know that the annual senior awards will be taking place again in the spring, and asking once again to confirm our the $1,000 annual Bethel Township Scholarship that we do every year. This is part of the budget that this board passed prior to the first of the year. So we will be providing those funds as usual. The funds need to be provided to the school district before April 11th. So we have some time. We just need to confirm with the counseling office that we will be participating by Friday. So Bill, if we haven't reached out to them, just confirm with the counseling office that it's been budgeted for, and we will provide the $1,000 donation as usual.
Yes, sir.
Junior supervisor program, we do this every year. The school selects one of the members of the junior class to come and sit on this board and observe the goings on of local government. As we've done in years past, the intent at this point is to appoint a junior supervisor at the board meeting on March 11th, and that individual will serve through September of 2025. Applicants must be Bethel Township residents, being current and be a current junior at the Garden Valley High School. The selection committee will make a choice as to the applicants. The selection committee is comprised of GVHS staff members, the supervisor liaison of the district, and a representative from the guidance department. The interested applicants have to submit their letters of interest by February 21st to the school district, and then they will let us know opted to throw their hat in the ring. In terms of library, we did receive a year review report from the library. It's quite lengthy. I'm not going to bore anybody with reading it. If anybody's interested in seeing it, we can provide copies to anyone. It's a library report. It's a bit wordy. But in terms of anybody wanting to know the activities going on at the library, I would encourage everybody to visit the Richard Cole Library website and find their activities for the month. That concludes my reports.
Thank you. The manager's report, Dr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everybody. The township office has been actively updating the township website calendar with the 2025 schedule. That includes the Parks and Recreations event and the township's recycling events. At the end of January, we experienced some network and phone issues due to penetration testing. We are pleased to report that these issues have been resolved. Our office staff continues to diligently post current events and news updates on both the township website and on our social media accounts, i.e. Instagram and Facebook. Additionally, we are working to improve the efficiency of the live streaming for the board meetings to enhance accessibility for our residents. We've also updated the Do Not Knock registry and added a copy of ordinance number 240 to our website. We've redesigned the active soliciting permits page, which will allow residents to easily check to see who is actually approved to have a permit. And at the bottom of the solicitation page, in the red, there'll be a red section now that'll tell you when they actually expire and how long they are current for. And the goal is that those expiration dates will help residents feel more comfortable. And once again, like the chief of police will always say, when in doubt, if you suspect anyone is suspicious or soliciting without a permit, please call 911. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We don't have any items under old business, so let's move into the new business.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2025-07 to appoint I'll just talk it through first. So to appoint a CPA for the 2024 township and tax collector audits. So this resolution 2025-07 is a resolution of Bethel Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, appointing Leitzel and Economides PC to audit the township's financial statements for fiscal year 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Derhinessian and seconded by Supervisor Iacono. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I'm gonna also work on resolution 2025-08 ratifying certain budgetary transfers to and from reserves in calendar year 2024. And Peter, if you would be so kind as to explain.
Sure. What we do on an annual basis is in order to cover our expenses, there are a few accounts that have gone over budget. What we do is we take we make one resolution annually where we take all of our income accounts that are over budget. We take that surplus, we put it into our reserve account. Along with what's there, we move that in a budgetary movement into our expenses to cover those accounts that are in effect over budget. Rather than do that on a monthly basis, we do that annually. And that makes us, so to speak, whole as of the end of 24.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think in totality, there was a surplus. In general, there was a surplus for last year, but it's just putting that into the general fund and reallocating.
Right, and it's really just, it's budgetary movement. It's not real cash. It's just taking surplus budgetary dollars and covering those expenditures where they might have been over budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'd like to make a motion to pass resolution 2025-08, a resolution of Bethel Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, ratifying certain budgetary transfers to and from fund reserves in calendar year 2024.
Motion made by Supervisor Derhinessian,
I'll second.
seconded by Supervisor Iacono. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, as you all know, we have a new EMS provider, and are now paying for EMS services. So we need to create a new EMS fund, so the next two motions are for that, so the first motion would be authorization to open a checking account with Fulton Bank for a newly established EMS fund.
And I second. Motion made by Supervisor Iacono and seconded by Supervisor Denny. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the next motion is to open an account with authorization to open an account with Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust Pliget for the newly established EMS funds, and hopes to generate a little bit of interest on that money.
Motion made by Supervisor Iacono. I will second. Seconded by Supervisor Denny. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the next motion is part of our grant agreement with DCNR. They will be depositing money into our accounts, and they want that to be in a separate interest-bearing checking account. So the next two motions are related to that. I'd like to make a motion to authorize to open an interest-bearing checking account with Fulton Bank to manage revenue from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for grant funds.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Iacono and seconded by Supervisor Derhinessian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And similarly to the EMS fund, we're going to try and open a Pliget account for this as well. So I'd like to make a motion to authorize to open an account with the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust Pliget to manage revenue from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources funds.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Iacono and seconded by Supervisor Derhinessian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, this is something I'd alluded to earlier, but we are looking to bring in a staff accountant that was interviewed, I think, on 3 separate occasions by township personnel. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Donna Gibson as Bethel Township Staff Accountant at an annual salary of $70,000, subject to a 60-day probation period and evaluation.
I'll second that motion.
So motion made by Supervisor Denny and seconded by Supervisor Iacono. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And to go along with that, a motion to appoint Donna Gibson as a Pliget contact and connect user with the following permissions: view account information, initiate transactions, open and close accounts, and receive paperwork.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Denny and seconded by Supervisor Derhinessian. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So our traffic consultant is ready to place the Green Light Go project out to bid. He has provided draft bid documents for our review. It's been reviewed by our township engineer as well as our solicitor. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to advertise bids for the Green Light Go detection upgrade project for controller modifications, video and radar detection upgrades prepared by Traffic Planning and Design. The locations include Falk Road and Namens Creek Road, Falk Road and Zebley Road, Falk Road and Bethel Road, and Namens Creek Road and Ebright Road.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Iacono and seconded by Supervisor Derhinessian. Any comments? All those in favor?
Oh, George.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize.
George Lincoln, 1418 Deer Meadow Lane. I've been following this as we brought the program on. I think it's a great idea. I think the police chief supported wholeheartedly bringing this project on. Would it be possible for the board to periodically, let's say quarterly, provide some statistics relative to the success of that project so that we have an understanding of what we're getting for our money in this situation? Does that make
I
sense?
think you might be confusing the video detection the police is using with
I'm
the
sorry,
video
I am,
detection
yes.
for
Yeah,
traffic.
logic,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so
complete
I'm looking-
logic. This is signal timing and modifications for traffic, not for police department purposes. This is just gonna upgrade the efficiency of going through those intersections and the timing of the lights.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I
But
believe,
since I brought that up,
yes, I think Chief he was for a little bit
Yeah.
providing some updates. I'm pretty sure we can work that into his his report.
Yeah, so I don't think we need it monthly, but maybe on a quarterly
Sure.
basis, just so we have some idea of
Absolutely.
how efficient that's been for us. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, George.
Got it. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on item J, so this is a discussion about entering an agreement with North American Land Trust. So they are kind of the overseers of the conservation of the Schaefer Preserve. And for their participation as part of that program, they are requesting a fee of $30,000. And so I'd like to make a motion to enter in an agreement. Well, actually, I should say before that, let me go back. So this would come out of the Schaefer Preserve budget that was budgeted in the 2024 budget in the past.
2025.
Excuse me,
2025.
2020. It was budgeted in 2024, discussion for 2025. Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion to enter in an agreement with the North American Land Trust for services related to the Schaefer Preserve conservation easement in an amount not to exceed $30,000.
And that's just to kind of clarify, they have to review the plans that we are going to put out for permitting, and they have to oversee the easement and amend the easement agreement. So this money is for those services and for them to continue oversight of the property,
And why are we paying for that?
because we own the property.
Right, but so we're contracting them?
Yes.
Okay.
The same procedure we undertook when we purchased the property.
Okay, we budgeted for this in the Schaefer budget.
Yes.
How much do we budget?
There's $90,000 in there total.
Do we line item this?
Yep.
For $90,000 for null.
90, it's item 409, 400 Schaefer property,
That's all.
$90,000 was the beginning of the year budget. And that was, that money right now is for Schaefer, for Null, and for Chester Valley. That money came from the ARP funds originally, and when we transferred all the ARP funds into the general fund, residual line item is for that.
The email attached suggests a stewardship payment of
Yes.
$10,000. What's that?
That's for them to oversee the easement. They periodically go out and make sure that we are not doing anything that's not in compliance with the easement. They currently do that now, but that allows them to continue that.
And I apologize. Are we doing this pursuant to a legal obligation or because we feel like we want to?
Well, we have to.
That wasn't my question. Doing it pursuant to a legal obligation or because we decided we wanted to?
As I understand, it's a contractual obligation.
Well, that was my question can we have our solicitor comment on that, please?
If I can
Mike.
find the mute button, give me 1 second. Am I muted?
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
we can hear you.
Oh, I'm not. I'm sorry. I thought I muted myself. So in order to develop the walking trail and the like at the park, we need to make some amendments to the conservation easement. So this would be pursuant to that. In order to amend the conservation easement, we need to enter into this agreement with Knoll.
So
We're also-
we're going to amend it and then we're going to pay them to review our amendments.
We're going to pay their cost of amending the agreement.
They're amending it in the first instance?
Typically, they've made the first draft when I've worked with them in other towns and when we worked with them on the acquisition of Schaefer. They have in-house counsel that makes that first pass. This also pays for their, all of their administrative time.
Then the $10,000 stewardship payment goes to what again?
It goes to reviewing compliance with the amended easement. And I think that they escrow some money for any legal fees that might be needed in the future.
But is that in perpetuity or they're gonna come back every so often and ask for
No.
money?
It's a one-time payment.
No, it's one time.
Only if you need to make amendments to the easement in the future would you have to pay again.
Do we get the money back if we don't?
No.
Of course not.
I think there was a different agreement where it could have been a T&M basis.
I think this is a not to exceed.
This is not to exceed, yeah.
Yeah, so the 20,000, you could get portion of that back. The 10,000 is a stewardship payment. That's not refundable. And it's also significantly less than their stewardship payments they require of private entities, which is usually in the $40,000-$50,000 range.
So what if there's a disagreement in the language between the township and them? Is there additional fees that will be incurred?
They've labeled this as not to exceed, so I haven't seen the document yet, but, you know, I would make sure that it's not to exceed.
Supervisor, just one question. So Supervisor, I think, are you asking if for some reason we propose an amendment and they take exception to it, and then we're kind of incurring?
Well, I believe they're proposing the amendment and then we're gonna review it. I'm saying, what if we don't agree with it and there's months and months of back and forth?
Then the meter runs until $10,000 is it?
Yeah, and we have to pay our attorney to go back and forth.
Correct.
So.
I mean, it's not, from what we did the last time, from the original agreement to when we purchased it, there weren't that many modifications to it, and I don't envision. Part of it is also because we're adding more property to be under easement now, which also triggers them to have to modify the agreement, so.
Well, I think there's a significant modification that's going from natural state to a state of where there's gonna be paving and other stuff involved, so I don't think it's a simple amendment. That's just my layman's opinion.
The easement allows you to do a lot of that stuff, so.
I'm sorry, we have comments from the public.
James McDaniel, 1450 Zebby Road East. I looked these people up on the internet tonight. Now, I could have been on the wrong site, but this is a nonprofit organization. Am I right? So how are we paying $30,000 to a nonprofit organization? I mean, this Schaefer Reserve seemed like it's turned into a money pit. If you need anybody to count acorns and walnuts over there, I'll do it. You can pay me. Are these people hired to sneak something in over there to get around the regulations on this property?
Their responsibility is to protect they're the stewards of it.
So they have nothing doing with putting a parking lot in somewhere around Goodley Road? They won't change the wording for that? Is that what actually behind this? I mean, that is a money pit over there. Even the Goodley Road culvert project, have you taken money for that from the grants? You haven't received none of that money yet? Because every month or year you put that project off, the cost is going up. Okay, or you're waiting for get through the first phase and the parking lot is going to be put in on the second phase over there. That's why we haven't done the culvert project.
No, they're separate projects altogether. The
Yeah, but
culvert is not part of the Schaefer
it seems to me if you're gonna keep putting the culvert project off, there is a reason. Is that because you're gonna put a parking lot over there? And I'll tell you, I love this Zoom live stream because when you say something now, people like me, we don't have to wait a month for the minutes. We can play it back when I go home. And I'm getting on a tangent here. The other night, I don't know why, you didn't turn around and ask the township lawyer, the solicitor, about making the insurance documents public. You asked Mike, you're paying Mr. Madison up there, you could turn around and ask him.
I did.
Okay. Do we have them then? Is there an answer to that?
Posted online? They're online, right?
The do's and don'ts for the insurance company, they're online?
I don't know.
That's what we want to
We
hear,
were
the
told to
do's
put
and
it online,
don'ts,
yeah.
were the things that they require. And we, like I say, with this live stream, I can play that back. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear that you said something about, I don't think we can make that
I
public.
said I wasn't sure and I asked the solicitor
And
and he
what was
said,
the
I
answer?
think we can.
Because I didn't hear it. I don't hear it on the live stream.
Well, We'll double check.
No, I can
I thought
double
it got
check.
posted already, so.
And like I say, this is a nonprofit organization and they're requesting $30,000? Is it a nonprofit
I'm
organization?
not sure. Mike,
Well,
do you,
how can you pay a company if you don't know the background of these people?
Mike, do you know?
Yeah, NALT is a nonprofit.
So why are we paying a nonprofit? Is that a common thing you do?
Yeah, they still have expenses, Jim.
Right. So does taxpayers. I think it's just a loophole to get around stuff. And I don't know the woman's name, the last lady that spoke. The pavilion don't need to be there. That's man-made. The picnic tables don't need to be there. They're man-made. The Schaefer Homestead, I don't know the people who live there. Are they going to use this facility for when they have a party or picnic or something and use the parking, the minimal 15 spots, and then nobody in the township can use them? Is that possible? Or is that going to happen?
There's nothing that would stop. The event is open to township residents. So there's
Right,
nothing
but
that
if
would
somebody
stop that.
in that residence is having a huge party, are they going to use the facility, the picnic tables and the pavilion for their use?
I believe they could, there's a permit, I think there's a public permit for our park system once you exceed.
Well, when that happens, let's make sure that's issued, okay? Because you only got 15 parking spots and if we're having something big over there, township people can't use that place. Okay? Cause I don't actually, this gentleman, Mr. Davy, and him I trust. You guys I don't trust. Actually, you two people, that's why Joe Biden lost the election. You're spending our money like it's nothing. And you too. Township, Garner Valley Administrator, I'm not gonna throw the name out there. Not only township tax, Delaware County tax, it was reminding me, people who don't pay them probably don't pay the Garner Valley school tax either. But you can spend our money. I still, that $30,000 needs to be more refined, what it actually is.
I can give you some clarity.
But you shouldn't have to, it ought to be in print. Ought to be in print.
Well, we'll be one.
We don't
We'll have a
normally
contract.
give the breakdown for many of the motions that we
Well, maybe you
have.
ought to. Maybe you ought to. Maybe you ought to.
So we get Friday before every board meeting, we get emailed a packet. This month's packet is 305 pages. I don't know why we couldn't put that on the website on Fridays, so you have all the information to look at before a board meeting.
Right.
I think the public would like that, instead of us trying to give a
Because I'll tell you,
5-second explanation of what's here.
this land reserve is turned into a cash cow. Spending money like crazy over there. Like I just said earlier tonight, if you want somebody to go over there and count walnuts and acorns, hey, count me in on this cash cow. Cause I like to make some money at it instead of paying money out. Cause you're just throwing money away. I bet from start to finish, I bet you're around $3 million, $4 million, $5 million. Even you say grant money, okay? Where does grant money come from?
State.
Falls out of.
No,
Federal government.
taxpayers, not federal government. Federal government does not produce money. State doesn't raise. Taxes produce money.
I told this gentleman we walked in tonight, I've been watching the Perry Mason show on late night TV. I'm just joking there, but that's why I asked where the grant money comes
free
from.
money
It
that
don't
grows on
fall
trees.
out of the sky, you know what I mean?
Money.
It's Pennsylvania taxpayers' money, so either way, you're taking money from taxpayers. Grant money don't fall out of the sky like a lottery. So either you're taking it out of this pocket or you're taking it out of this pocket, you're stealing. I call it stealing. That's it. And my wife and granddaughter are watching this. Actually, they bought popcorn for the night. It's a circus.
Thank you.
Hi, John Nevy, 3213 Sarum Farm Lane. In general, I understand the necessity for this outlay to some degree. That being said, Giovanna, just to give you, and I have the covenant, both the original and the amendment. This is not what you did when you purchased the original property, which is simply subdividing the property into two pieces.
Sure.
You're now asking to put pavement. So just to give you an idea, a couple of things that I know off the top of my head are in variance with the current easements, which may cause some difficulty. The conserved areas are not supposed to have any pavement or tarmac whatsoever. That's going to be outside of it. So I would not surprise me that they come back and require that we look into, for the paths and pathways, that we look into something other than tarmac. Then we go back to probably the wooden bridges and probably some sort of stone or more natural type of substrate. You're talking about putting in there a drainage system, which is completely outside of the scope of what's in the agreement. You're talking about doing, putting up mounds and barriers along there. You're talking about major readjustment to the landscape of the property, which is explicitly prohibited per the covenant. I actually expect that they're going to find some objections to it. Now, again, some of that's going to benefit me as one of the neighbors who's alongside there. So I am interested in understanding what Null's perspective is on that. But I think that this is going to be as simple as it was subdividing the property 2 or 3 years ago is probably an incorrect assumption. And I would be surprised that this is not going to have a back and forth with regards to what Null's expectations on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Smith, 1602 Wendy Way. I guess this Knoll, it seems like a conflict of interest. They're supposed to police us, right? Police the preserve, and yet we're paying them. So that seems like a bribe.
Our auditors work in the same fashion. We compensate them to be a third party back check. I mean, my understanding is that
Yeah,
they're
that's black and white. Go on, sorry.
no. I think the intent is for it to be similarly black and white, where they're evaluating our intentions against the covenant. That's my understanding, and then not just during the design and potential construction, but even in perpetuity.
Okay, well, I mean, it just looks bad. I just don't think it looks very transparent. It looks very fishy. That's just my opinion, but I think a lot of people would share that it just looks very strange. And I agree with things that the others have said, there are some radical changes that you want to propose to this that go against the covenant. And like I said, you need to be very transparent about everything you do with NALT and, well, with anything with the preserve, and especially with NALT though. And, think we'd like to know what, it just seems very strange about this payment to them. It seems very fishy. So yeah, and it seems just like a conflict of interest, I don't know. It's just what it looks like to me. I have a second question, which I can save till the end. It has to do with Schaefer, but doesn't really have to do with NALT. Should I just ask it now? Well, this phase 1 and phase 2 thing, do you know, what the timeline is for phase 1 and phase 2? Because what I'm afraid of is that I don't think you have money for phase 2 yet. You don't have money, you don't have a budget, no drawings, nothing. We don't know what that is at all. And, I don't think you should do phase 1 until you know what phase 2 is going to look like, because I don't want to sit there for 3 years and look at machinery or dug up paths or whatever. And
I think
That's
that's
definitely not the intent. And phase 2, and we're working with Chester Valley to kind of nail down the phase 1 and phase 2. But phase 2 was more things that are kind of accessories, so to speak, like the pavilion would be a phase 2 project. So the intent is if phase 1 gets completed, it will be completed, and there's not going to be exposed earth. There's not going to be equipment left there for years. It'll be completed and ready to use. And phase 2 can be done when and if the township chooses and funds become available.
When or if.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry, I just want to add, I think at the time of phase 1 completed drawings, phase 2 drawings would also be complete.
yes.
Really?
Yes.
The whole
When are you
design-
going to do permits? Next week, weren't you? Or in March, next month?
Well, it's going to be delayed now because we have to go through NALT. So
And you are correct, it's a funding limitation, so whatever is a necessity to meet the requirements is phase. Parking curb stops, as an example, of something that could be done in phase 2, stuff like that, additional
Well,
wayfinding.
I disagree because, landscaping is a big thing. And I know a lot of the neighbors are worried about, what's this going to look like? And, you know, right now, you're not calling for for an example, you're not calling for any landscaping. Well, I have a big problem with that. A big
Well, the
problem.
plan that was presented did not show landscaping on it. It was a concept site plan.
Mhm.
But there will be landscaping done as part of phase one.
Really? Because that's not what your paper said when you showed it 2 weeks ago. That's not what you said.
With the cost breakdown, you're saying?
No, she's
There
saying it
was a
didn't
list
show
of
trees.
stuff on phase one and a list of stuff on phase two, and it was a rather vague list. They
Yeah.
weren't very detail oriented, which is
Because
a
they were
worry
trying to get some
also.
feedback from their, they're coming in, only hearing what we've told them and
Mhm.
reading through all the meeting minutes and everything. So the intent of that plan was to get feedback from the public and then to start revising it to fine tuning the phase one and phase two, and then starting to have the discussions with Null. Because like Mr. Nevi said, there would probably be some back and forth with Null.
I mean, and a lot of things I think you're saving for phase two are security items, like fences and, things that the neighbors are, well,
No.
I don't think you should start phase one until phase two is completely planned and approved. And then even that the money is applied for and gotten. I don't think you should do anything until it's all been arranged. Because, what if that money dries up? It could, through nobody's fault, but that might just be the way of what happens. And I just don't think it's right, because then it's just gonna be a half-finished park. And I hate to say it, but the other parks here are kind of like that now, they're, and I'm not the only person to have said that, why don't you finish the parks that you have now, make them really nice, and then work on shape or preserve? But no, you just want to, go ahead, and I get the open space thing and everything, but you could leave it alone for open space. So, and just so everybody knows, I did a right to know. I did 4 of them, but I did a right to know because I want a copy of all the insurance letters saying, what we can't do in Schaefer Preserve. So I of course got put off because lack of staffing, which I don't understand how that happens because we've hired a second right to know person, but reassigned them. So no, nothing personal, guys, but I'm supposed to have that in 30 days, but I want to see, what these insurance companies are saying, because I just still don't believe it. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
I just have one little comment.
Please.
And listening to my wife, she covered just about everything. Dennis Smith, 1602 Wendy Way. I looked at the drawing that was proposed. And the one thing that really stands out to me is that where they put the storm basin in, that was a wooded area. So that they've taken about 20 or 30% of the canopy. And Simone Collins always used to talk about the canopy. And he said when he was done, when they were done with the park, there would be more canopy, than there began with. And that's my biggest, and by the way, in the back of my house just 2 days ago, I saw like 15 or 20 deer. So the herd of deer, it's just getting huge. So I don't know what
I have two
you're going to do with that.
Two comments there,
That's
that
it.
might help. The storm basin in general, it was specifically located at that location because we had the arborist come out and identify
okay.
dead and diseased trees.
Uh,
And in that area, that was the largest collection of trees that were already targeted for removal because they were unhealthy and or unsafe. And that's what I'm saying is Chester Valley is saying with the current routing of the pathways, they think there's only 4 healthy trees that have to be removed so they can get the right grading. And the second half of that is the Simone Collins plantings element. I think there's vegetative buffer plantings,
right.
which are kind of the same as fencing, kind of critical to stage 1.
Right.
And if there's additional funds, there might be a desire for additional plantings,
Right.
but they're not required as far as that was more the phase 2, if there's such a thing, phase 2 landscape, which is additional plantings on the interior of the park.
Right. So that was the biggest worry, I think.
In my opinion, one of the things that I think would be most important for you and some of the other adjacent neighbors is when there is a landscape plan that we have that available to be shared.
Right.
Because I believe that a lot of the dialogue that was discussed in the preliminary drawings is going to carry over, and it's going to be what you guys expected in terms of a cover.
Right. Okay. Okay, well, that's it.
Thank you. Please come up.
James McDaniel, 1415 Zebby Road East. My family's probably on their second bag of popcorn by now. Restroom facilities. Where are they gonna be at? As you notice, I mean, I don't have a bladder problem, but most of us gotta use something. And and I'm not gonna say it, but there's a I-95 restroom down 95 that's got a nickname, and I'm not gonna say it because there's too many women here. And how many are you gonna put them in? Where are you gonna put them and how many? And I used to fish down at Delaware Bay late at night. When them doors slam, you can hear them a mile away. So that's another issue. But how many are you gonna have and where are you gonna have them? Because there's a lot of trees and you're gonna have a lot of strangers, don't care where they go. Chief of Police will tell you, I had a guy in front of my house last month, was pissing right in the street, right in plain view of everybody, my cameras. And he got just 20 acres?
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be one or two.
I think it's two probably.
Porta potties.
Porta potties, yeah, that's.
And
what we have in
also
all our
In
parks.
the parking area.
Also, you're gonna have a truck pumping them out, delivering them
I don't,
in these people's backyards, front yards, side yards. They don't unload themselves. They don't empty themselves. You ever smell them things when they're pumping them out?
yeah, I don't think they're gonna pump on premise. They're gonna
Well, yeah,
pick up and then
I
put
don't
new
know
ones.
that
and you got the truck running around. If you have one somewhere in the center of the park, truck gonna get there, that's more motor noise. I'll tell you, like I've said it before, I'm up here talking about dumb stuff, but I've lost confidence in you people. I've lost a lot of confidence. This is not the board it was 5 years ago, 2 years ago. It's not.
Thank you. Any other comment?
You made a motion, I don't know if you got a second.
Yeah,
Did you get a second?
Joe Connor, 3317 Falk Road. All this money we are putting out, when are we gonna start seeing a return on our money? What is the end game? What will the township gain from it?
So I think there's two questions. One is what's it gonna look like? And then when's it gonna?
Now, when are we gonna start getting a return on all of our money?
There's no return on investment. No.
Exactly.
You're not investing in a business. You're not charging admission for people to go in. You're paying.
Are we
to
gonna
own
even-
it,
are we-
you're paying
are we
to
even
make it,
gonna
you're paying
make-
to maintain it, and then. you're
Right,
not
are we
getting
even gonna
money
make,
back?
are we gonna get enough in grants to even maintain it?
Who knows?
It's a big gamble.
I remember,
I think that's what a lot of the public would, I mean, most of them aren't here, but I think that's a lot of people would like to know too. What is the end game? What are we doing all this for?
and sort of remind me, one of the most poignant things Simone Collins did at a public meeting was, he's like, there's great monies to build it, but municipalities run into problems with money to maintain it. That's the real cost, is long-term maintenance, and we've yet to see any estimates for that. None.
I agree. I think, the best thing we can do is reach out to our highway group and get them to estimate what an annual maintenance.
Yeah, I am, because it's one thing to put money out if you can see when you're gonna start getting a return on your money. If there was, I mean, obviously with grant money, you can't take it and put it somewhere else because it can only be used for that specific. So we're all here we're gambling.
I can't speak to that, but I think from a timing standpoint, design would be completed at some point this year. And then we would look to move into construction. Now, I don't know, Giovanni, if you knew, or Matt, if you had an idea of how long construction duration would be.
Few months.
Yeah, so.
I mean, we'd have to kind of see how the phasing breaks out, but.
So if the funding sources are there, it's something that could be late 2026, potentially 2025.
So what would
So we're
happen?
gonna design it,
It won't be 2025.
we're gonna build it, and then cross our fingers that we can pay for it.
I don't know that that's what I said.
That's what I mean, we just said, we have no clue what the maintenance and preservation costs are gonna be going forward. We know it's gonna cost $1 million to build,
No, phase one.
phase one, sorry, true. But then after that $1 million is gone, then we gotta keep it for decades.
Right.
And how much is that gonna cost?
Yeah, I mean,
Then, to his point, there's no return on investment here. Other than the aesthetics
well, I
of
mean,
having it, but we're not, we can't, it's not a asset we make or earn money on.
that's correct. That we don't earn money on our parks. The parks, the return on investment, I guess, is the enjoyment from the residents. And the preservation of space within the town to keep the dynamic as we have it. As far as maintenance costs go, and I'm not an expert
Be
in,
that high.
and I'm not an expert in that realm, but we've got about a half a mile of 8-foot wide, 9-foot wide pathway. It's intentional to use something like asphalt because of its low maintenance properties. It's a very small parking area. So I believe I'm sure there's gonna be some plowing operations in the parking area. And there's gonna be grass cutting on the small limited areas where there is grass, but most of it's meadow and doesn't require to be cut.
You're correct.
And then any new plantings, it's intentionally selecting the types of plants that would not require a lot of tree surgery in the future, not something that's gonna grow and become dangerous. So I think there's been, to Supervisor D'Agostino's point, I think it's been several meetings where the public wants to know a ballpark of what that maintenance figure looks like. And I think that we should work with our highway department and the public works and figure out what that looks like.
So this could end up being a money pit.
I don't see how that's the
Word
case.
goes around all the time, and that's exactly what it could end up, it is right now, but
You can make an argument it already is, but yeah.
yeah,
That's what I said, one of it.
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
How about, since we, John Nevy, 3213 Sound Farm, since we kind of went on a tangent a little bit, a few things. One, this property was already under covenant and was already deeded as open space in perpetuity. So the idea that we're gaining open space in this situation is false. It was already there. And in fact, part of the problem that we as a township are running into right now is that I don't think the council at the time of purchase fully understood the level of restrictions that are on the property as it is. And this is why we're having the difficulties we are with plan proposals and things of that sort. In fact, this was kicked off by the discussion of needing to pay NALT, a land trust money to begin to review the plans that we have. So I think let's keep that in mind, that the public benefit was already there. With regards to the maintenance costs, this has been asked for, I think now for 2 years since the original meeting with the Simone group. I wouldn't say it was July or August, and was it 23, 24, whatever year it was. I forgot. It's been a while. To this point, I don't think anyone's seen any estimate of annual cost for maintenance of the property. I don't even know what the current annual cost is right now to maintain the property in terms of just lawn cutting and maintenance and police services and other things that are going on there right now in a situation where it is just literally an open space preserve. And with the additional facilities, you're talking about putting a pavilion up, there will be maintenance and upkeep on the pavilion. There will be maintenance upkeep on the pathways. Even assuming you have, asphalt or tarmac pathways, there's still going to be maintenance and upkeep. There's going to be insurance costs. There's going to be insurance issues. You've got a pond that's back there that's going to need that. You're going to have tree cuttings, and again, you have 20 plus acres primarily of, large amounts of meadow, but a large amount of it is also trees that are going to require ongoing maintenance and management there. Something we don't have in most of the other parks in this area. Most of our parks are open space. It's not like, the parks where we tend to have trees tend to be in Concord Township across the way, or managed by the county or the state. It was mentioned at the special meeting, and I think it's worth reiterating here at this meeting, that we seem to be in a giant rush again to move this project forward without understanding any of the long-term financial expectations and requirements, the safety needs and safety requirements. And I haven't even gotten into the proposal for the entranceway is literally probably the most dangerous curve in the township because it's at the bottom of what is almost a blind turn. Particularly when you're on the east side of Bethel Road. And it is a narrow pathway into I know it, I've lived next to it for 20 years. It is essentially it'd be an alleyway in any city, not a street. We seem to be trying to rush into this again. Like we rushed into making the purchase 3 or 4 years ago without understanding everything. And I think it would behoove all of us and behoove the township, and be a benefit to the community if we slow down, take a good, careful look at what we're planning to do, have an actual complete plan, both what it's going to cost to build phase 1, phase 2, what is going to be involved in that, something that's been vetted and that has the approval of all the necessary stakeholders, including NALT, including the neighbors who, both on Sarum Farm, Wendy Way, Goodley, and the other areas that are affected by it. And also have a complete understanding of what is the annual maintenance cost and an understanding of what the impact to the tax revenue and the tax base for that revenue cost is going to be, because that is an annual cost that will not come from grant money. And that's something that we as a township will have to maintain and manage ongoing. And it's something that based on the condition of our current parks, we've done a very poor job of. So maybe would be best to slow down and consider what we want to do and move forward with this when we have a solid plan that has complete backing from the township. Because I think it's pretty clear in all of the public meetings that we've had with this project that there is significant concern and objection to what is being moving forward, both from what's being planned with regards to the facilities, as well as the financial cost implications, both to construct as well as to maintain long-term. Thank you.
Thanks.
Last time. I know my house, they're there at this meeting. James McDaniel, 1415 Zebby Road East. I'm gonna go way back. When you people bought this property, who was with you? I mean, how did this come about? Was this a land reserve before you bought it, after you bought it, or during you bought it? Did you know what you were buying?
It had an easement before we purchased it.
So you knew you weren't buying a park, right? You knew where you weren't buying a park. That's a yes or no.
And I'm not sure what you mean we weren't buying a park. We were buying a preserved piece of property.
Right, which is not a park.
No, you have to turn it into a park.
No, because it's land reserve. You can't turn it into a park. That's the problem right there. Did Mr. Madden explain that to you? That you bought a land reserve and not a park? The entrance. I've seen PennDOT do entrances like Boost Corners Farmers Market. Who's going to pay to widen that thing? You're probably going to have decel lanes. Who pays for that? Who pays for that?
That'll all be part of the project cost.
Right. You don't even know how much that's going to cost. You bring PennDOT in there, they're not going to just tell you put a 10-foot thing in there. They're going to want a decel lane, curbs, all that stuff. You don't have a clue. I worked for Dr. Schaefer many times over the years. I was either on strike or I was laid off. And I guarantee you, this man did not know all this was going to turn into a mess. It's unfortunate his name's on there. I think you ought to change the name. Sour Lemon Park. Sour lemons. It's going to stick with this project till we're all dead and buried. Sour Lemon Park. It's never going to change. It's got a nickname just like the I-95 rest stop. It's going to stick with it forever. Sour Lemon Tree Park. Sour Lemon Tree Park. You know, like I said, the entrance. You don't even know how much that's going to cost. PennDOT takes forever to do stuff. Talking about even equipment, you're spending all this money, you might not even get in it. Like I said, disgust, loss of confidence. I think you're rushing because of election time. That's what I think. I look at some of the dates. People are going, I can't believe, I live in a small house. My tax bill is nothing compared to people that live in that neighborhood. And to tell you what, you want to get a sewer spot with people? Take money out of their pocket. Take money out of their pocket. The fact, you don't even know what the entrance is going to cost, let alone get into the park.
Thank you.
Don't thank me. Don't thank me. That's a slap.
Okay, I think I made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think we had some discussion. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I believe it was 3-2. Motion carries. On item K,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to enter a one-year agreement with Advanced Electrical Services Group for a Generac mobile link in amount of not to exceed $96 per year.
and I will make a second. There's a motion made by Supervisor D'Agostino and seconded by Supervisor Denny. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, am I in the right spot here? Okay. Yep, so we talked about it in the Parks and Rec Board meeting, but in order to pay for the upcoming Easter egg hunt, I'd like to make a motion to approve the release of funds for the Parks and Recreation Easter egg hunt in an amount not to exceed $2,000, which is the budgeted amount.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Denny and seconded by Supervisor Dervinessian. Any comment?
Do we know if there's plans to have an Easter egg hunt in the township this year?
It is at Clayton Park this year. Any other comment? All those in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Motion carries. So the second item is what some of the residents had discussed earlier about improvements to existing parks. So I guess over the last couple months, our township engineer went out with our public works group to evaluate the condition of the wooden walkways at Jack King Park. And there were two options developed on how to remove the rotting and slippery wooden walkways over the swampy areas. One was to put down concrete sleepers and build up. And the second option was to put in a stone bladder, and then top that with more crushed stone, compressible crushed stone, with an option to potentially pave it in the future. This was brought to and in the packet, there's some plans for that. It's brought in front of the Parks and Recreation Board, and they voted to go with option 2, which would be to put down the stone bladder, build it up, and put the stone pathway with the hope that we could eventually pave it. And then you'd have a lower maintenance design, but also a little bit easier for folks that are using bikes or strollers or wheelchairs. Is there anything you'd like to add, Matt, to that?
No, that about summarizes it. Again, the second option was a little more expensive, but I think in the long run, would better serve the township.
And the estimate you provided was a little, I want to say it was around $8,800 and change.
Yes.
And the budgeted amount for the Parks and Rec development is $10,000 annually. So we bumped that up because we know you were just giving us an estimate, and then the actual cost might be a little bit different because there's some permitting involved with that as well.
Yeah, I think some of the pricing in there for the wetland delineation is low.
It's a little bit low.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in an effort to not have to come back in front of the board for an additional motion, we're trying to make that amount $10,000. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the improvements to the walking path at Jack King Park, the total cost not to exceed $10,000.
And our highway department's gonna do all this work.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Outside of the engineering services.
Did we talk to them about that?
Yes, they were out there. They were part of the evaluation of the project. Okay, so I made a motion. I don't know if there's a second.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Supervisor Denny and seconded by Supervisor Dervinessian. Is there other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I would like to make a motion to designate Stephanie Derhinessian as our PSATS voting delegate for 2025.
And I'll make a second. Motion made by Supervisor Iacono and seconded by Supervisor Denny. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other topics for discussion from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to reconcile two things I heard. One thing I heard was that we were gonna post the the insurance letters for Shaver Park online. And then I heard Mrs. Smith said she got a 30-day letter. So what are we gonna do with that?
My understanding was there were multiple right to know requests. So I don't know, I can't speak to.
Yeah, I think there were.
Exactly.
But did you have one for the insurance letter?
I did, I wanted to, I asked for all ship insurance letters, but he.
Okay. So how many days do we need to put that up online?
If the board suggests, I can put it up there tomorrow.
That particular one, okay, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'd make a recommendation.
I'm
Let's
fine with that.
put the insurance, this is the insurance document that identified their qualifiers for the safe operation of the preserve. Yeah.
And Diane, sorry, I can't see you.
Sorry.
Once the letters go up, are you amenable to withdrawing that specific right to know request to save our staff some?
Just send a letter, I guess, just write a little letter.
Yeah, just once you see them online, we're able to access them, just send Bill an email, just confirming and writing that you're withdrawing that request so we can mark it off on our end.
Yeah, I can do that. What I was interested in, I wanted to see, like, it seems like they seem to have, cut this tree down and no one can walk, it seemed like I kept hearing excuses as to why we couldn't use the park, so.
Right, I understand that you wanted the letters, but once the letters get online, you don't need that one request anymore, just to save them some administrative burden. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Davey. I think Supervisor Agostino, you had a second.
Yeah, and just, this board is always talking about transparency, so would there be any issue with on Friday when the board members receive their packets, if we could also post that packet online so the public would have more information, more transparency, to be able to come up with educated questions besides us giving them a 3-second explanation with no documentation?
I think that's gonna require
Yeah,
our solicitor to go through and redact probably some of that information, right? I don't know,
I don't know if that can all.
like, maybe that's a discussion with Mike
Yeah.
at some point to see what he would need to.
In
look
this
through.
packet, I believe
This one's probably not as bad, but sometimes there's sensitive information in those packets that.
sometimes, but this packet, I think the only thing we'd have to take out would be probably the address on the resume. Besides that, there's nothing in here that would, under a Sunshine Act or a right to know law, we would be able to redact. So I see no reason to hide stuff from the public when this board constantly is talking about transparency and communication.
I'll defer to Madron on his thoughts.
What, I mean, my thoughts are that we'd have to take it month by month, I think, and make sure, I mean, if Bill's able to put the packet together in time for me to take a look at it, make sure there's nothing that isn't subject to right to know, and I guess,
And I think that's part of the problem is that, the packet's coming to us at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock on a Friday. So, I mean, maybe on Monday would be realistic to post it, but if it's coming to us, Madron's gonna have to review it, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, I think Monday would be fine. And this isn't,
But you gotta get a commitment from
Yeah.
Mike to find the time to.
I usually don't have anything to do on the weekends, so.
I am very familiar with the right to know law. I'm a right to know officer. There's very few things I ever see in these packets that are exempt from Sunshine Act or right to know. You might not want people to see it, but that's different. There's between not wanting people to see it and them having the right to see it.
Want to make sure that all of our township staff has enough time to put everything together and review it before, to make sure we're not violating anything before it gets posted. That's my only concern. Sure, you can say that.
So Bill,
Yes.
from your team's perspective, I don't know if that's an additional hardship or just want to kind of get your team's thoughts.
The township office will do whatever the board suggests to us. That's it.
Okay.
We will do what we're instructed to do. If I'm instructed to do that, we will make sure it's done.
And if the packet goes to our solicitor for review on what what's going to go in front of the resident. Is that, Mike Madron, will there be an additional burden? I guess a cost burden
Sure.
associated with you doing that? Or is that on the-
I mean,
It's on
there'll
the
be some time,
house. Nothing he does is on the house.
there'll
I'm
be,
joking.
there'll be some time to go through it. You know, I mean, I generally work with Bill on the agenda anyhow. So I'm typically familiar with what's going to be in there, but I'll certainly have to look at it. So I mean, if you're asking me what it's going to cost every month, I have no idea.
No,
You
I
know?
just wanted to make sure that it's just like everything else that we do, there's a cost and a benefit. So, you know, I want to make sure the board here, if this is something we want to do, that we're accepting the additional cost every month. And then maybe twice a month, depending on understanding special meetings. Are we comfortable with increasing our solicitor
We have
fee?
no problem having micromanagement review anything for Schaefer Park or any other little pet projects. We're trying to provide true transparency, not fake transparency, but true transparency for him to review a packet he's very familiar with and he works with Bill constantly on. I think is a return on investment in trust with the public opposed to other things that Mike Madron has asked to review and we pay for without blinking an eye.
No, I respect that. I mean, you've been on the board longer than me and I know Supervisor Dave, you have too. Have you guys had a packet for years?
Yeah,
Have you ever thought about putting it out to the public?
no.
Why do you think?
Probably because there was trust and there seems to be from the public. Maybe I'm interpreting the public incorrectly, but if I feel like every month people come here and say they don't trust us, so and we get pounded in our head, transparency, but then when it's brought up, oh, how are we gonna pay a lawyer to look at something? But we're gonna pay Norton attorneys $600 an hour without blinking an eye.
Understood. No, I just think it's worth having the conversation, right? Decide, you know, I want
That's
to.
what we're doing here.
Yep.
Can I ask a question before, just real quick? Would it be helpful if you moved the deadline back for when things are accepted for the packet by a couple days?
I think
so
the
that you
problem
have more
is that
time?
our staff, our consultants, everybody who contributes to that packet cannot meet that deadline.
Sure.
We have a deadline now that people can't meet, so
lock it
that's
in
why
then.
the packet comes out so late on Fridays. So I think, you know, the best you could say is that if Madron has time to review it on Monday, we could try and post it on Monday. But I know Bill to the very 11th hour is adding stuff to the packet, unfortunately. Because we've tried that. We've tried to even, I think at one point Supervisor D'Agostino a couple years ago tried to get the packet to come out a little bit earlier,
Sure.
but we just can't compile all the documents from all the different entities who contribute to it.
If it's any consolation and helps the board with their decision making, I will say that from those years of experience in putting the packet together, I can identify certain things that I would be concerned with that I think should go to Mike, but there's a lot of stuff that is just inconsequential, that are supporting, that would be no brainers. So it may not be that difficult for us to do it if the board would like us to do that.
I mean, if Mike can commit to reviewing it so it can get posted on Monday, I don't have any objections.
I will do whatever you guys ask of me.
There you go.
I like it. Okay, is there an opportunity to make a motion on that? Even though it's not on the agenda?
I think it's administrative. I think if the
motion.
consensus is to do it, I don't think you really need a motion.
Well, I'm in favor of it as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am.
For purposes, Michael D'Agostino made the motion and your second.
We're not
making a motion.
Just your thought, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
We have a comment from the public?
James McDaniel, 1415 Zebby Road, fourth time. The packet, is this, I got lost. Is this about the insurance?
The packet is what we put together every month. It's the
Remember years ago, we
background
walked
art.
up here with a binder.
Right.
We don't do the binders anymore. We get emailed a packet, like I said, it's 300, this month, 305 pages of PDFs.
Okay.
And everything we talk about, there's backup information about that gives it detail.
Every line item on the agenda essentially has a few sheets to go with it to explain what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about putting on the website.
All right. Because you people can spend $1 million in blink of an eye. Mike's been a long time township resident and you're kind of balking at him, paying him to do something. I mean, his cost is probably minimal. But like I say, you can spend $1 million over at Schaefer Reserve like that. And I think people want this stuff because it's a matter of lack of confidence. Lack of confidence. I trust this gentleman. I trust that gentleman down there. And I trust township lawyer. I don't trust you. I'll tell you, this live stream is the best thing that ever happened. This is better than when the Daily Times was a half-inch thick. That's it. I love that live stream. I love it.
Great. Okay. That concludes the agenda. Could I get a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I could,
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Drive safe, everyone.
I don't know how.
Nice, we're back.
That's my fault.
So quiet.
Yeah.
Of course.